I first of all thank AIUS for giving me an opportunity to speak upon rhino-orbital cerebral mucormycosis that was prevalent in central India. And we had a very hard time looking into all these problems, because all of a sudden, as the COVID-19 waxed and waned, what happened? There was a sudden spurt in the number of cases of ocular mucormycosis, which had come to us in a horde. This was a PTI presentation on a hospital which was involved in active cure of orbital mucormycosis. This is my alma mater. This is my experience. The study was conducted, as I've already told you, in Government Medical College, Jabalpur. All the departments ranging from ophthalmology, ENT, neurosurgery, pathology coordinated to see that could be able to save the life of the patient, which this particular malady has a incidence quoted in the literature somewhat of 80%, somewhere 70%. So we tried very hard and incorporated all the departments of our college, ranging from ENT, neurosurgery, and pathology also. There is very one question which was pertinent to all these patients. Either they got the knowledge from various sources like print media, or they were referred to ophthalmology department from other departments to our department. These were the questions post-COVID which we have to answer. Why a large number of patients are succumbing to COVID? Venous occlusion cases were coming as more and more D-dimer level were elevated during this post-COVID stage. More of the patient venous occlusion had a elevated D-dimer level, at least twice the normal level. And was the mucormycosis only opportunistic infection in post-COVID sequelae, which we have to deal with? And what this COVID had our say in our own department of ophthalmic fellows and residents. Apart from this, there was a group of patients I've already told you who have read a lot from the Google and various other platforms. And they were anxious enough to know whether they had developed ROCM after COVID infection, or does they have a mild nasal problem and all those. Routine is ophthalmological examination, ranging to whatever is we are doing for a patient visiting our OPD. These were the observations. Mean age group range from 80 to 17 years. We had a lot of patients of COVID admitted in our own hospital, and there was not only few children were implicated. Male-female ratio was not that much significant. But one thing which was very common was that 85% of these patients had type 2 diabetes mellitus. Either the diabetes mellitus on account of steroid like methylprednisolone or dexamethasone given as a part and parcel of the treatment, or they had a pre-existing diabetes mellitus. Among these, 30%, around 1/3 or 30% of the patients were unaware they had full-fledged sign of rhino-orbital cerebral mucormycosis. And when the reports were sent for pathological examination, they turned up with a temporary or a steroid-induced diabetes mellitus. Mean postprandial blood sugar, at least what I have quoted is 280, but in our ward, I found that they were a little bit more than 300 mg/% in all of the patients, not more in all of the patients. And ketoacidosis was a very frequent feature in these patients. Ketone bodies were prevalent in these patients. We concluded that those patients who had developed ROCM had diabetes mellitus and ketoacidosis as one of the major implicating factors. Whether it was a primary diabetes mellitus or a steroid-induced diabetes mellitus, but increased blood sugar percentage, at least of 300 to 280, was prevalent in each and every patient. And 1/3 of these patients were literally unaware of their diabetic status. They had been given intravenous methylprednisolone or dexamethasone in our hospital or in private hospital of outside our medical college, or they had been given oral prednisolone in high doses like methylprednisolone 16 mg TDS for 5 days, then tapering it out to 16 milligram BD. That was one of the unique features which we have come to know. Or the last chunk of these patients had a very prolonged stay in ICU wards of our college and elsewhere. And they had been administered dexamethasone or methylprednisolone in anticipation to increase the low SpO2, which had fallen down very dramatically from 94 to 84 in a lot of these patients when we looked into the history. And supplemental oxygen support was provided with various means and measures like BiPAP, non-breathable mask, ventilator support. These group of patients always have a supplemental oxygen. And when you looked into their profile, when you looked into their CRP values from the records of our hospital, we came to know there was at least 5 times increase in CRP values from the baseline. On account of severe cytokine storm, and interventionists have to intervene to see that the cytokine storm drops down. CRP values in most of these patients were in the range of 80, 90. That was very remarkable as compared to COVID-1 wave. And we have these guys are some patients have also been quoted in literature about dextrioxamine. We didn't use much of that. High level of zinc, they have said, might be patient may be forcibly using it. High level of zinc, self-induced zinc toxicity could be there. It has been corroborated as one of the important factors. But as far as dextrioxamine and concern and chelating agent or the zinc uses were there, they might have used, but we didn't. In medical college, we are very much sure we didn't use all the chelating agents and high dose. These were the symptoms which we came to us. The patient came to us with nasal clustering. 100% of these patients had nasal clustering. 100% of these patients had unilateral facial swelling. They had a few patients had unilateral retrobulbar pain, but pain was very severe in 75% of these patients reported back to us, and they were not even able to sleep. In 40% of these patients, what I found out, they came to us without being referred to any other on complaint of loss of vision. They had developed a CRO. That was very prevalent on examination with indirect ophthalmoscopy, and although we found that these 40% of the patients did have a no PL perception of light unilaterally. Other ocular symptoms which were very common was unilateral drooping of lids, a restriction of ocular movement, ophthalmoplegia was, diplopia was there, redness and severe pain in the eyes was there. And one patient I came to very strange, he had developed a CSR, recorded in SDOCT of Harmach College department. And they were referred from ENT and dental department. The ENT people, when they referred us, the patient which we had unilateral blockage of nose, epistaxis was very common, though it is not associated, but epistaxis was there. Apart from foul smelling discharge, epistaxis was there. And Escher formation was there around the nasolabial region, which compelled the ENT people to have an ophthalmological checkup. Dental people have also, we have also incorporated the dental department. Most of the complaint which dental OPD, dental surgeon which told us was toothache, loosening of the tooth, increased mobility of the tooth. Palatal eschar was present. Gingival swelling was there, he was telling. There was numbness and tingling sensation over the palatine region, around 30%. And those patients which were referred to neurosurgical wards, where they had developed hemiparesis, seizures, and headache was one of the most important inflammatory factors. This is a photograph of the dedicated mucormycosis ward of our college. You can see there were hordes of patients who had been admitted for mucormycosis in our college. All the department consultants were posted over there. These are the few of the signs which I have enumerated. This was the nasal debridement which has been done. These are the few of the signs which I have told you for the same patient, which were there in the medical college, which we had come to know. These were the examination of ROCM patient in dental OPD. You can see a lot of palatal scar and gingival swelling. Loosening of the tooth was one of the complaints for which they visited the dental OPD. Among them, one patient was also a developed CSR, which I already told you. This is the picture, SDOCT picture of the CSR patient. Visual acuity, those patients who were referred from other OPD like dental and neurosurgical had a vision, in 60% of the vision had a good vision of 660 to 660, and 40% of the patient had no PL at all. We subjected the patient to routine laboratory investigation in our college, ranging from CBC to PTINR. CT scan, and these are the images that we have done. The mainstay of the treatment, basically, which we presumed was we should go for a very aggressive nasal surgical debridement of infected tissue at the earliest possible juncture. Immediately, if the patient, we came out, the patient had a superior orbital fissure syndrome, or he lost his vision, or due to CR and other causes, we immediately referred the patient to ENT surgeon. They performed debridement at a very aggressive nature. This was the endoscopic nasal debridement, which was done by the department, and 73% patient was immediately taken up for nasal debridement in ENT department. This was a nasal debridement was done. You can see a blackish scarred necrotic area also, which was sent to histopathological examination. Ophthalmological problem were dealt accordingly. Patients were administered in ENT department liposomal amphotericin B 5 to 10 milligram per kg body weight was used in 5% dextrose for 28 days. Later on, they stepped down for posaconazole 300 milligram BID for 28 days. Ophthalmological problem were dealt by our consultant as required. We had even gone for intracorneal amphotericin B 3.5 milligram per ml in lot of patients who had developed superior orbital fissure syndrome. These are the facts and files of the patient.
Dr. Siddiqui, only 1 minute. To interrupt. If you can quickly wrap it up, please. Yes, thank you so much.
Madam, I've gone for discussion. Very kind of you. Worst thing was that the patient had an impaired host defenses. They had violent induced lymphopenia. Corticosteroid was extensively used. And the disruption of blood sugar control was late. DKA events were there. Few of them have been liberated with chemotherapy, organ which much we didn't find out. Thank you, madam, for your patient hearing. This is a nutshell which I have been able to tell us about the various COVID patients which were present in our medical college.
Thank you very much, Dr. Siddiqui, and congratulations on this excellent work. I'm sure it would have been a very challenging situation for you, dealing with so many patients in a government medical college in Madhya Pradesh.